It's also in the fiscal impact part of the report. It's going to be $1,278,000 and change to Open Station 60 with a two-person engine company, one of them being Pneumatic. That's what county is quoting me at this time. That's for the one-year agreement. The one-year agreement will be July 1st, 2017, about that range, depending on obviously when things get approved and when they can get the station staff. So we're assuming it'll be July 17 through June of 18. And then by the end of December, we'll have to make known whether or not we're going to extend with the county, and if so, we'll be going to a three-person engine company. One of the interesting things when I was meeting with the county fire mentioned there's actually some good grant opportunities that they feel that the city would more than qualify for because of our size and our situation. It's called a SAFER grant to be able to pay for staffing. And so they seem to think that we would be more than enough to pay for at least a third person, if not more. And so staff will be looking at that grant. So if something happens to where we need to contract with the county at the end of the 1 year, that hopefully we'll have funds to be able to offset that third person. And so the idea here with getting fire on here was to get make sure the council's all up to date. They understand the terms of the agreement, and basically you're not agreeing to the agreement. It has not been, we do not have a final draft from the county. I wanted the council on record basically agreeing to the Calamasa language and the costs that were provided to the city, and that's what I'm looking for at this time, and I'll take any questions from the council.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
And there are things that if you would just clarify.
Sure.
Well, just one thing I just wanted to comment on Section 3, payment for services. It states this exhibit may be amended in writing by mutual agreement by both parties. In the past, the city's had very bad experience with mutual agreement because it was in our contract when we tried numerous times to sit down with them when their costs were increasing to the point that it was unsustainable. And there was no cooperation whatsoever. It was like mutual agreement wasn't in the language. And ultimately that's what led us to finally file a lawsuit to get their attention. So I'm a little nervous about that, but I guess that's standard.
Right, basically, and obviously, and for Calamasa to agree to these things, I don't think it must be too far-fetched, but typically, I think the intent behind this section is if the city wishes to do anything above and beyond the contract, we decide to add a third person, then we would need to pay for that. You know, obviously, you know, there are costs in there that we can't control. So just like labor costs, they just finished labor negotiations, and so there would have been increased costs associated with that they're going to push onto other current contract cities. They'll see some increases because of the new labor agreement. So that would be out of control of that section.
Yeah.
Where it's not mutually agreeable. It's like would be saying the county go, let's say we had a three-person engine company, and for some reason they needed to reduce staffing to 2. Maybe you wanted to keep 3, but for some reason countywide they had to go to two-person engine companies as an example. They would have to come back to us and say, we want to reduce your staffing and hopefully reduce your costs associated with that. That would be an example of on the county side.
Okay, and this ties into that. In Section 3B, it says cities obligated to expend or appropriate any sum or excess of Exhibit A increased by action of the legislature, CAL FIRE, or any other public agency with authority to direct changes. That made me a little nervous, and the actions of the legislature I can see because that's uncontrollable by anybody. CAL FIRE, I have to assume that state.
That'd be on the state, yeah, that would be, well, the legislature and the CAL FIRE, that would be mostly labor agreements or for some reason a state standard that they push down to everybody, something like that. And then the other public agencies, as we know, would be the county.
Could the county also be considered, county CAL FIRE be considered a public agency?
CAL FIRE is a public agency.
Okay, well, it says action of the legislature.
Right.
CAL FIRE, which I'm assuming
is a state department, right?
Or any other public agency. So actually, the county could also,
Correct.
The supervisor.
Right, because we know since the county doesn't have its own fire department, the county contracts with the state for fire protection, but the county can make decisions regarding their county fire department, which their contractor would make those changes. And so, and it's been my experience when I first met with the county, the first things they told me is, according to state law, counties are required to recoup every penny from contract cities. And
but they would have to prove that it was an expenditure.
Correct.
that
They'd have to prove it, they'd have to
had
show
not
it.
been accounted for
Correct.
prior, or,
Right.
okay.
This is labor contract.
Basically, that's what the city attorney's correct. This is basically in there for labor agreement issues. Luckily, the labor has just been settled. This is a one-year agreement. We shouldn't really see anything.
No surprises.
Unless for some reason, from what I heard, and I'd have to talk to Chief Pemberton about this, or Chief Hawkins, if there's any significant labor increases that are gonna happen in 6 months. Typically, it'll happen now, and then annually.
Okay, and then would you clarify on, in section, I think it's G, the use of fire engines? We have a city fire engine.
Correct.
But would you describe?
Sure, so,
What the plan is.
so just to let the council know, we do have the city does own its own fire engine. Currently, it's in reserve in Menifee, I believe it's Station 63. We'll request that back. I know it's an older one, it has some miles on it, but it's still in good working order and it's good as a reserve engine. Section G, the county fire has a program to where you can lease a vehicle. It's $25,000 a year. It happens to be built into that cost, and in my mind, it's probably a pretty good deal for the 1 year contract we're getting. So part of that $1,278,000 is $25,000 for the engine. That gives us, it's supposed to give us basically a brand new engine. It's not supposed to break. If something happens, they replace it right away. It's a lease, but it's basically the county takes care of everything. We will have a newer frontline engine at all times.
Okay.
Hey, Aaron, this is Larry.
Yes.
Will that engine come back fully equipped?
I will. I hope so. Well, I'll check with the county about what was on it when it left. I'm assuming, hopefully, there was some sort of inventory as part of it. I'm assuming there should be some standard pieces of equipment that are on any engine when it's outfitted that we should get back with it. Obviously, when they took it out of service out of 60 and used it somewhere else, there should have been an inventory, and we should get all that back.
There was an
Yeah,
inventory.
I'm hoping that the engine, because it's being in reserve, hasn't been cannibalized because stuff that's come up.
So we'll take that inventory and make sure that
Okay.
county fire replenishes the engine to the way it was when they took it to other parts of the county.
When Station 60 closed, I believe Ariel, because I asked her about that specifically, if anyone was inventorying all of our equipment that was in Station 60, because things were going out the door, and also inventory the engine, and I believe that was done. I was told that it was to be done.
So we will double check that inventory, and I will get with county fire to make sure that when this agreement's signed, that we get back the engine with the equipment we gave it with.
Okay, and you said you believe that the labor increases are fixed for the year?
Yes, I believe that was settled a few weeks ago. It's my understanding these include the current labor agreement. If it doesn't, then, I mean, it could go up. It won't go up significantly, but there could be some sort of increase there. But that's not what I was told at this time.
Okay, now, who else on the council would like to ask? Jordan?
Just one question on page 3, and perhaps it's a typo, under fiscal impact.
Oh, of the staff report?
Okay.
Yes. It says.
Oh, yes. It should be June 30th, 2018.
Okay.
Yes.
I was wondering how.
How it went, how it was a one-day reverse contract.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not like a reverse mortgage. So.
Just put it
Okay.
in the test.
Thank you.
That's right. I'm glad somebody's reading the agendas. Thank you. Staff, thanks you.
Mayor, I have one question.
Yes.
And Aaron, maybe you explained earlier, but you said the estimated impact, fiscal impact of $1 1,278,000.
Yes, that is the cost the county is giving me for the year.
Right, but then we go to page 14 and it says 1,437,000. What's the
Okay.
difference?
Okay, so page 14, that's actually Calamesa's cost for them. That was part of the contract, so I wanted to show you their cost for the year. That's actually Calamesa's cost, not ours.
But I thought part of the contract was the contract would be about the same conditions as far as expenses.
It is, but ours are less.
Oh, good.
Are you complaining?
No, I understand.
Right, so if you live,
Because
so if,
of the staffing,
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at it, I gave you the full contract language and what Calamasa was paying for. So they're paying for similar staffing, but because they're broken up, theirs is over the calendar year. They also got cost numbers before the labor agreement went into effect, so you can see some differences there. And they're also paying for that lease on the engine.
Okay. Thank you.
No,
Hey,
I'm not-
Aaron, just one other question, this is Larry. When are we gonna have the station ready? I know we've got a pretty extensive maintenance schedule on it. Will it be ready by the open date?
We're doing our best to push it for July 1st, and I'm gonna have Mike give an update on where we are on the rehab of the station.
Okay.
Just really quick, obviously, we did the environmental assessment on the building, and there was a report that was put out for the mold. That's still, we're still sort of evaluating that. We still haven't proceeded to move forward in that. However, one of the things we have done is the assessment of the HVAC system. That's something that has to be looked at to figure out whether or not it needs to be repaired, replaced, or what have you. The good thing about that, we as Canyon Lake, we're part of a partnership with Western Regional Energy Partnership that part of the energy partnership, HVAC is one of the incentives that you do have on there. So if it turns out that this could be something of replacing, we might be able to get some incentives through Southern California Edison to get this done. So just aware of that. And then the last thing that we have kind of going on right now, they've done an assessment of the interior carpet, tile, that sort of thing. The recommendation that's coming back from Charles Abbott right now is that we do more of a thorough cleaning than replacing, just because of the condition of it is actually not that bad according to what they're saying. I'm going to do more of a tour to get more of an evaluation on that myself to see if that's something we should do. Other than that, that's pretty much it as of right now. So,
Mike?
yes.
Thank you.
Would you address the fact, I've had people question me on the costs that seem to be excessive. Would you address on how we are going to deal with their estimate?
Okay, you're referencing the rough order. So the rough order, if you see it, it's line item by line item of what the costs are estimated to be at. Now again, it's an estimate. It's not an actual. I know it says 110, but some of those items between myself and Aaron that have we reviewed it, we know that we can bring down those costs. Again, I think they've exceedingly padded the amounts for whatever reason, but what the amount says there is not what the actual is going to be. So we expect it to be a whole lot less than what it is based on the assessment of the rough order. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, also, and I can just say this, we will be managing the project.
Absolutely.
We will be monitoring the bids that go out and the responses that come back. There will be bids going out on it, and we are requesting that they use local contractors wherever possible.
That's correct,
And
yes.
so,
Charles Abbott is sort of the lead, but we are going to be approving what gets done.
yeah.
So when we receive bids back, we're going to look at them. We're going to determine which way to go. So it's not going to be something that's going to be done by Charles Abbott. It's going to be done by us. So
Good, because this was really primarily a rough
that's exactly-
guesstimate with a high
That's why it's-
contingency added. Instead of 10%, it was 15. They wanted to be sure that they were covered in case when something was torn apart, that they didn't
Something
find some
unexpected, correct.
huge unexpected expense. So they wanted to make sure that they covered any potential aspects of that.
Like I said
I feel
before-
it will be significantly lower.
And like I said before, initially, we thought that the rough order was gonna come in more like 250,000 rather than 110. So, I mean, we're happy that it came in at that amount as an estimate. But obviously, it's gonna even be less than that, so we should be fine.
Yeah. Well, and I was expecting it to come in at much less than 110, so I wasn't quite so happy. But in talking with Mike and with Aaron, we will be monitoring that very closely.
Absolutely.
It will be going
And I will,
Yeah.
I'll be the one that's gonna be overseeing that project and making sure that everything is.
We're not going to spend money we don't have
Correct.
to spend.
Absolutely.
It's going to be well repaired, but it's not going to be the Taj Mahal.
No, not at all. It's gonna be a fire station, that's all it's gonna be.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions? Anybody? For Mike? Okay, thanks, Mike.
One public comment first.
Okay, we have one public comment. Jack?
I'd send you a good slip, but I can't write. Reference to the fire, I was glad to hear that you're considering the paramedic, because if you sign something with a two-man engine company over there, and if one of them's not a paramedic, you don't have anything at all. All you've got is a worthless piece of operation. You've got to have a paramedic on there, you've got to have the other man, you end up with what is referred to in a lot of different areas as a squad. And the other thing with reference to equipment, they should make sure that they supply you with the equipment that's needed for a paramedic to communicate and so on. So that's one of the really important things in what you're doing there. As far as the cost is concerned, I was a little concerned about the fact that the building is something that we're supplying. I speak of we being the POA and the city. We're supplying that, so we should get credit for that, because a lot of cities, the CAL FIRE come in and they build, and the county's paying for that particular building. So I don't know, I'm sure Aaron's already looked into that, but that's something that you really want to consider, because that's our building, we take care of it, and so they're just coming in and we're just paying for fire service.
That was all included.
That is just that's staffing costs, that's not facilities.
Just a staffing cost.
Yep, for them
Okay.
to staff our station. And actually, from talking to most of the cities around here, most of the cities actually do own their stations, and so they're paying for staffing just like us. And I mean, the only facility, the only equipment they're purchasing or paying for is typically the engine lease.
Yeah, over the years, we've done quite a bit for the fire service in that area. For instance, we have little breakfast deals and stuff, and pay for their television and so on, so that they don't have to go out and buy that. So I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't think anybody does. Reading in the paper the other day with reference to the fire service, and supervisors kind of indicated that they're a little unhappy with cost, which leads me to think that maybe you may end up in a JPA, and I certainly wouldn't be against that, because you have no control whatsoever.
We're looking at all options.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm happy that you're insisting on a paramedic. I think it's good for our community. And having about 50 years in the fire service, I would be very disappointed if you didn't have one.
No, there was never a question about that. That was the whole object.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other
Thank you,
comments?
Jack.
Larry, did you? Oh, okay, do you have a card?
No,
Oh, okay,
I
John?
don't need one. You don't have to fill it out.
Okay,
Because as you recall, you didn't want to ever talk about again, any member of the public desiring to address the council shall proceed to the podium and wait to be recognized as I'm John Zeitz, 30279 Clearwater Drive, Canyon Lake 92587. My question has to do with the first responders area. It appears to be, and I don't want to make assumptions, that the new contract changes things by giving the northern area faster response with one less person. Because I don't hear anything else. I have talked to the other two cities that are now responding to Canyon Lake in 100%. And they aren't aware of any of this and have not been contacted by anyone from the city managers or the council members or anybody else. And I guess there appears to be an assumption, and 5 of you, I believe, you may be the exception, will be anticipating being responded to by a 3-man truck. So is 60% of the community still going to be supported by Menifee and Lake Elsinore? And do they know that they're going to be doing this? And is that going to happen? My first contact is, no, it's not. If you're going to have your own 2-man truck, you're going to take care of Canyon Lake in total. And 94 and 7 will not be the first responders to cover your areas with a 3-man truck. And has there been any discussions with the county on that? Obviously, from what I've been told by the other cities, there's not been any discussion with the cities.
thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Any further comments from the city council? All right, I'm going to make the motion on this one. I move to approve the consent and structure of the cooperative agreement to provide fire protection, fire prevention, rescue, and medical emergency services for the city of Canyon Lake and the costs associated with such an agreement, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement once it is presented to the city.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a roll call vote on that, please.
Councilmember Bonner,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz,
Yes.
Councilmember Green,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Warren,
Yes,
Mayor Haggerty.
Yes,
Motion approved 5-0.
thank you. Okay, moving on to 6.2, we have pending legislation, and Aaron, would you please present that?
Sure. The League of Cities has sent out a request of all the cities in regards to AB 1250. Has to do with contracting out services. As you'll see, that it's has a heavily union sponsor. It's got SEIU as their major sponsor on this one, looking at obviously protecting jobs on their end. What the league is telling us is, as you saw from your packet on the information in there, especially with the smaller cities, a lot of undue economic, and they're not full-blown economic analysis if you want to do so. Like a few years ago when you had financing here, if you wanted to and fully go to what we have now with contracting out with Rams, then you'd have to do a full-blown economic analysis on that, keeping some of the things here, and any large contracts around 1,000, keeping on the website and things like that. But a lot of it is using a lot, for us, would be utilizing a lot of staff time. And so the smaller cities that might be looking at, because the budget's trimming down, this would be bad for a lot of cities. So the league is asking for our support. So included in there is already the form letter that they'd like the cities to fill out. And so what the staff's asking for is for the council's approval on the form letter for the mayor to go ahead and sign that, and we'll send that off to the league.
Okay, is there any discussion? Anybody on the council want to ask any questions?
no, I read through and I pulled it up online too, so.
Anybody in the audience? No public comments? All right, I need another roll call vote on this.
Can we get a motion in a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't done the motion. Could I have a motion, please?
Okay. Oh, I'll move, so moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Councilmember Bonner?
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Green?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Warren?
Yes,
Mayor Hagerty?
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Very good, thank you. Okay, 6.3, Aaron, again, would you like to make?
Sure, this is just a quick update. As you know, we had an ad hoc committee looking at our, the council's reimbursement policy that's currently in the code. The example that we sent out to you was what we have currently on file with a couple of proposed additions, setting in stone the reimbursement for both cell phones, personal cell phone, personal internet in there at the $40 and $60 levels that we currently are reimbursing. So we're looking at that right now. We're also auditing all of council and staff's expenses since 2016. And so what staff's going to do to make sure that they're falling within the current policy, the way at least it's understood, see if there's any confusion, see if there's anything else we need to add to the policy and any feedback we get from them. So the staff's also recommending right now that we're going to suspend all reimbursements until this policy is updated. And the idea is we're going to bring this back in June when we do the budget with the final draft. So we can implement it then June, July-ish, and then we'll go back and have it ready to go for July 1st, and then we can go forward with reimbursements from there.
Any council questions on that? Public, oh, Vicki.
Well, I just wanted to be sure, I know that we've been doing some audits because there were some anomalies discovered. I'm a little concerned that some of these passed through several processes, including the Finance Committee. Is there a way to write in the future specific roles? So who gets, when these first come out, is the buck's gotta stop somewhere. Now, I haven't put any in since I went to the League of California Cities when I first started. But if I did and I make a mistake, I actually expect somebody to catch that mistake for me and guide me through whatever I did. So what is our process and how will it be improved?
The current process, as I understand it, is...
The current process, as I understand it, is it's reviewed by the finance officer, then it's reviewed in more of a spot check kind of process by the city manager. Then it goes to the finance committee, although the finance committee may or may not have backup that comes from it. I think one of the things that staff is looking at, because we've talked a little bit about it, is does that process work? And does it work smoothly? Does it work on time? And does it ensure accuracy? In addition to the phone, the internet and the cell phone reimbursements, there's a number of other reimbursements in here, like travel expenses, which have in some other cities been somewhat controversial. So let's take a hard look at those as well. And I'm told mileage is one thing that on occasion you get some questions about. So as we have talked about how our suggestions for the draft policy, to which your suggestions will be added, it would first outline the process for the reimbursements, ending with the Finance Committee and then the agenda approval, and then put in the parameters for those reimbursements in a somewhat tighter fashion, perhaps, than it's been done in the past.
Yeah, so there will be, I think, direction given to the Finance Department about specifically what is going to be required, and they'll hold everybody's feet to the fire. No, we don't have this, we're not going forward. They'll contact you, hey, we need this, and nothing's going to go forward until we have all the proper documentation.
Okay, so that will all be included when we actually are...
In June, correct.
Because I just want to see a really tight system.
Yes.
But you also need to provide your comments
Of course.
on this.
Yes.
Did I?
Hey guys, can I chime in here since Randy and I are on the Finance Committee?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, we do look at every cost that comes across of expenditures, and we do flag quite a few items because there isn't a lot of descriptive on what the cost entails. It just has the amount in a very brief narrative. On cost reimbursements, we do see them, we do look at them, but as far as us scrutinizing them, we figured that each of the council's integrity, because there's sometimes that like the mayor has mileage and other things because of the committees she's involved with. So we kind of look through them, look at them, but to scrutinize them, we haven't been doing that. So maybe that's something we need to do.
In all honesty, my concern is that by the time it reaches you, that should have already happened through other systems, and that's what I want to see.
Yes.
I understand because we all get busy, and Larry, I appreciate you believing in that it's all come to you pristine. But the fact is that doesn't always happen, and we've got to button down our procedures so that that doesn't. By the time you get it, it should be everything but solid.
And I hate to use the word we assume, but there are some times that we have to, and I know I raise a lot of questions when we have our meeting with the finance folks, but especially on costing and contracting and other things that we constantly work on every month. So, we'll do our due diligence to make it right, but I think it's all incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we submit the proper paperwork.
Would the backup for any expenses by a council person be attached, and would there be a sign-off, I mean, like a checkbox where it's been looked at by each person, where the finance committee could simply look at the boxes to be sure they're all
We
checked?
can look at that. That's one of the things, actually, we're meeting with the finance director next week to go over budget. And actually, this is one of the things I want to bring up. We're talking about, other policies. We've got a fee study we're looking at and some other, and we've talked about some other policies. But this one, yes, is we can ask, what is other smaller cities doing in it to make sure we're keeping an eye on this, nothing's out of control, everybody's above board, and everything's transparent. And so we'll talk with Terry next week when we meet with him to see what his suggestions are. Yeah, if there's, and what works well for his staff. So yeah, check boxes, okay, did you get these receipts for this, these receipts for that? No, okay, I need to get a hold of a council member, this is on hold over here until I get that and hear from them. And things like that, yes, and then we can see, and then when I review it, hopefully I can say, okay, they checked this off, and I can spot check and go, okay, that's there. And they did their due diligence on their end.
Okay, so basically, if things aren't attached, there would be some indication there of it having been reviewed and approved by all the various people.
Correct.
Required.
What I would do is nothing would go to the admin and finance committee until it was approvable, until everything is in there. So finance will hold everything until they have all the information to have an approvable expense report.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor, I don't want Jordan to think he's the only one reading this thing. On B1, second line, it says, but he conference, it's just a typo,
Right. We've noticed this is a very old policy, and the mayor's already pointed out some issues with the first couple of paragraphs. So this hasn't started from scratch. This is existing, and we kind of added to it. So don't worry, we'll be going over it with a fine-tooth comb. I know Terry from finance will have his input on it as well. So we'll have that out, and the idea is we'll have that back at the June meeting along with the budget. So this will be all appropriate to discuss.